Hi all, this is Ishkara. I'm back, and today I was going to talk about ENTPs and procrastination, because currently I'm procrastinating. I have a project that I need to get done, and I'm having a very hard time doing it. And also there was a comment on Personality Cafe that was asking how to stop procrastinating, and it really made me think. For one thing, this has always been a problem for me. Certain things, no. I really enjoy finding out stuff. So, for example, when I was in university, and if I had to accomplish a project or something, if I was interested in the project, I usually was really avid at researching, and I would find out a lot of stuff. The problem came when I had to put pen to paper and actually write the stuff down. Typically, that meant that I did, let's say that I had 3 months to do a project. That meant I left the class the day that it was assigned, went to the library or just went online or whatever, and started looking into it and just found out everything that I possibly could about whatever I wanted to write about. And sometimes I'd jot down notes, sometimes I wouldn't, but you know, I'd keep everything. It might be buried in the bottom of my bag. Yeah, and then I'd realize I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew a whole bunch of stuff about it. It was like I knew, and so I stopped. And then a couple months would go by, and I'd start to feel nervous because I knew I had to write this paper, and I knew what I wanted to write it on. I knew everything. People, actually, a friend of mine, she said, you know, you were so funny because, like, the day we found out that we had a test, you'd be able to tell me everything about it. And then the night before the test, I'd say, so did you study? And you'd say, no, I kind of got bored of that. And that's exactly how I was. Like, I would just go off things. So then I would still, so going back to my story, I still had all this, you know, I had all the studying that I'd done earlier, like all this learning that I'd done. My NE had been going spastic, and, you know, I mean, I'd done a lot of learning. And I suppose for a few days I was kind of processing and stuff like that. But then, as I said, like, you know, the deadline would start to loom. A couple of months would go by with nothing. And then maybe a day before, maybe 4 hours before, maybe I don't know how long before, I would finally sit down and write out everything and do it all. And then I'd hand it in. And occasionally, I would have a professor who really required, who basically demanded that you hand in a rough draft first, and then wanted to see it, and then wanted the paper due on the deadline, and I never did that. So in those classes, I got penalized, and it really pissed me off. But in every other class, like, this was how I functioned best. There was one time when I actually managed to sit down and slowly force my way excruciatingly through a paper. I was really, really trying to do something, and I wound up one time being able to force myself. God, it was so hard to do it. And I did the worst on that paper that I've ever done. It was excruciating. It was awful. That isn't the way I function. I can't function that way. It's not that I need the pressure of a deadline. Well, I do need the pressure of a deadline. But it's more like I can't do things in piecemeal. I kind of have to do them all at once. Even when I do longer things, I have to complete a chapter or a section or a portion. Like, there has to be a completion. I have to go from start to finish in reasonably uninterrupted stuff. My brain has to be just going, right, on it. But there's another kind of procrastination, and that's often to do with things where I know I'm not good at one aspect of something, or I know that something isn't going to work well for me. And those are often things like when I used to have a job, one of the jobs was dealing with spreadsheets, and I'm fine making a spreadsheet and dealing with a spreadsheet, everything. Inputting data into a spreadsheet makes me want to scratch my eyeballs out. And so how these projects would start is I would have to input columns of data just down. And like I sucked at this. When I would do that, I would make lots of mistakes, and then I'd have to go back and find the mistake and whatever. And I used to find that projects where the clients had like a large list to input into these spreadsheets started getting put on a pile where I just ignored it, and I wasn't able to do those projects. Like I just wasn't even able to turn to it. And so for those sorts of things, what I found is that myself, as an ENTP, I function very well when I have a minion of some sort. And so I wound up kind of minionizing the receptionist. Well, not really. She's a lovely lady. I mean, she wasn't really my minion, but like we had been friends before, and I talked to her about this issue, and she said, oh, well, why didn't you give it to me? I'm good at that. And it was lovely, because that is what I started doing. I would just hand these things over to her. You know what would take me an hour to do, because I would have to do it and redo it and redo it, and maybe even 2 hours or 3 hours. She would just do it in 15 minutes, because that's how she works. She was a lovely ISFJ who could just take a piece of paper, and she actually found comfort in that sort of repetition. The very first time I gave her that project, I had to stand with her and kind of show her how to do everything and exactly what goes in where. But once she'd done it 4 or 5 times, she started to really like it, and she just zinged through it. It was great. And so then what also that did was it sort of kick-started me, because she hands me something, and then there's this expectation that I finish it. And I could do that. There was like this, it worked. So that's something, is to sort of use other people. Not in a mean way, you know. I mean, this lady, I mean, I took her out for lunch lots of times. As I said, we were good friends. So it worked out really well. But like involving someone else to either hold you accountable or to do the stuff that isn't as possible. You know, the really, I hate to say this, but the really mundane stuff that like I certainly don't function very well at. Like another example was like we moved into this house, and it has no garden, no yard. The old people here never looked after it and stuff like that. And I don't know, my mother, an ENFP, she always had a beautiful garden. And one thing that I am aware of, and this is probably my FE again, is the social expectation that you keep your yard nice so that other people's property values don't go down because you moved in. So, you know, I mean, I'm a shitty gardener. I forget to water the lawn. I forget to do all these things. But I'm trying to maintain the garden and the yard. So, like I can buy the plants, I can dig it up, I can do all that stuff. But I needed topsoil. So I had to actually, like the plants were easy because I go to Costco anyway, and the plants were at Costco. So that's fine. You know, it was kind of tough making myself go to a garden center and walk up and down the aisles and look at stuff and see what I was supposed to have. That was a little bit tough. But I actually had to get my mom to come with me to buy topsoil. Isn't that bad? Like, because I knew, she says, oh, you just go and you bring your truck and you fill up a plastic bag with topsoil, and then you drive your truck through and you weigh it. And that's what you do. And I'm going, that's what I do? And I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And like she actually came with me and showed me how to do it the first time. And it was easy. It was really stupidly easy. But it wasn't my kind of thing. But anyway, I'm probably going to have to call this short, but basically I'm saying employ minions. If you employ minions, life gets better. Now I just have to figure out how to employ minions to get me started on this project. Anyway, take care.